At this point, it's just become tradition for me to make fun of Manchester United in the first few months of the season. Where we left off with Manchester United was actually back in October of 2021 when they lost 5-0 to Liverpool at home. United did bounce back the very next week against Spurs, but this was when Nuno was in charge of Spurs. And then came the Manchester derby where Pep's citizens were pretty much toying with United. Following the 2-1 loss came a 4-1 defeat to Elton John FC, which I predicted to happen. A day after the disastrous result, it was finally the end for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as he was sacked. To replace him was Ralf Rangnick as interim manager. Rangnick is considered the father of gegenpressing. Gegenpressing is when after a team is dispossessed, they immediately try and win the ball back instead of falling back and recovering. Basically, just imagine the ball as a magnet and everyone's being attracted to that side of the pitch where the ball is. This is a quite effective tactic, up until the better teams start realizing they could just expose the other side of the pitch. After Rangnick came in, United managed their best run of form where they lost just once in 15 games. That being said though, they drew 40% of those games, including against Newcastle, Aston Villa, Southampton, and Burnley. Let's also not forget, during this run, United scraped past Norwich with a penalty. Following the run, however, came one even worse than the fall stretch. In United's last 12 games, they won 3, drew 2, and lost 6. The Red Devils even lost to Everton. And after a final loss at Selhurst, United were lucky to finish 6th in the league due to a West Ham loss. Quite a bummer though, because I would have loved to see Ronaldo in the Conference League. That just would have been comedy gold. But United's defense was that of a YouTuber's apology video. They conceded more than 11 other teams in the league. When I taught my friend, who isn't into football, what these 3 things meant, he literally burst out laughing when he saw United's goal difference. That's how bad it is. Manchester United is being laughed at by people who don't even watch this sport. The attack was severely disappointing as well, with only 2 players scoring 10 or more goals. Had it not been for Ronaldo being the savior every other week, United would have finished bottom half of the table because Rat Boy sure as hell wasn't gonna help him. Hey guys, so a friend of mine is running the London Marathon in October and aiming to raise £2,000 in aid of Action Medical Research for Children, who fund research for cures and prevention for rare diseases that affect children. It would mean the world to me if you guys could help them reach their goal, and if the goal is reached, I'll host a giveaway that anyone can enter for the chance to win a shirt of their choosing. However, 2022-23 was the beginning of a new era as Erik ten Hag became manager. Ten Hag has had plenty of success with Ajax, with the most notable being the Champions League semi-final appearance in 2018-19. He's also very flexible in his tactics. After almost the entire Ajax team of 2018-19 was raided, he changed up the tactics with a mostly different team and succeeded. But the biggest thing going forward was his mentality. He was going to set these players straight. Simply put, no nonsense. If you're not committed, get out. Ten Hag's influence at United was felt almost immediately through his new signings. Left back Tyrell Malacia of Feyenoord for €15 million, attacking midfielder Christian Eriksen on a free, and Ajax defender Lisandro Martinez for €57.3 million. And with every revolution comes the removal of dead wood. Andreas Pereira to Fulham, Paul Pogba to Juventus, Jesse Lingard to Nottingham Forest, and the Jose Mourinho industry plant to Roma. In the preseason, Manchester United started out by deceiving the next generation of Southeast Asian football fans into supporting the club. They continued to show promise in their remaining friendlies, displaying the roots of what Ten Hag was envisioning. All while this was happening, Cristiano Ronaldo was doing everything in his power to get a move out of the club, to absolutely no success. And then came match day 1 of the 2022-23 Premier League season. A new smell was in the air, one of optimism for United supporters. Ten Hag's 11 men were about to show the entire world how to play football, because my friends, United are back.
It's begging to be tapped home. The hair doesn't get there properly, and Gross does.
To everyone's great shock, nothing changed. But let's take a deeper look into this first Brighton goal. Right off the bat, Scott McTominay is trying to run past 2 defenders and fails miserably. False 9 Christian Eriksen tries to intercept the ball and fails. And now with that, Pascal Gross has acres of space to run into. And if you think someone's gonna pick him up, yeah. Now that's already bad enough. And then you realize that the double pivot of McFred is literally outnumbered in the midfield. Now what could have potentially suppressed this danger is if the wingers actually tracked back. But since we're so far past that, Fred could at least mark Adam Lallana, which he doesn't. So now, we actually have 2 unsuspected Brighton players with plenty of space to run into. But trust me, it somehow gets worse. Next, Danny Welbeck runs in behind Harry Maguire. This is a sequence that happens quite frequently, but usually can be dealt with. unless you're United's defense. Lisandro Martinez does the right thing and closes in on Welbeck. Unfortunately for our Argentinian Hasbulla, Fred is covering an imaginary 12th player, and it's taken 18 eons for Harry Maguire to react to the situation. And when Maguire has realized, he just jogs back. Luke Shaw, seeing this incompetence, now has to try and stop Adam Lallana's run, which Maguire notices way too late. And oh, hey look, it's Pascal Gross, who still hasn't been noticed by anyone. The second goal is a lot simpler. Sure, De Gea makes a bad mistake, but hey, where's Diogo Dalot? Oh, there he is. All the way over there. So in the end, United lost 2-1 at home to Brighton. Brighton looked like they were going to score every single time they went forward because of how shambolic United's shape was. You had players tracking back at the speed of sloths, and then of course you can't forget the legendary double pivot of McFred. Fred was failing to mark anyone and also was dribbled past 2 times, and McTominay had a pass success rate of 67%. James Garner is being sold and he's staying, by the way, but this goes on to the next segment here. As we've seen, United's midfield has been terrible, and they've been trying to fix that by bringing in Ten Hag's biggest target, Frankie de Jong of Barcelona. However, that's been unsuccessful, so instead, United are going for Adrien Rabiot? No, you can't be serious, right? This is no joke. United are currently in talks with Adrien Rabiot. Since joining Juventus in 2019, Rabiot has done nothing. He's been awful. Sure, he's starting for the French team and quite frequently, but fans are literally begging Deschamps not to play him anymore. Not to mention the toxicity of his past and his mother. Adrien Rabiot has cried to his mother every single time something hasn't gone his way. And his mother, who's also his agent, will do everything in her power to make sure the club prioritizes him over the team. Although, since he has joined Juventus, I haven't heard as many stories as the time he was at Juventus and also Manchester City's youth academy. But if you thought that was all wild, during Euro 2020 when France lost on penalties to Switzerland, Rabiot's mother started picking fights with the families of Mbappe and Pogba. I wish I was making this shit up. You know, when United had one of the worst seasons to date, I really thought they were aware that there needed to be a bit of a culture revamp. I guess I was wrong. Next was Brentford away, an opportunity for Ten Hag's men to turn it around. However, in just 9 minutes, a Josh Da Silva strike slips through De Gea's hands into the net. And then 18 minutes played, De Gea makes another mistake and Matthias Jensen scores. Then in the 30th minute, Ben Mee makes it 3. Ben me.
There are fates worse than death.
But it ain't over just yet. Then comes one from Brian Mbeumo off a fantastic counterattack. 4-0 in 35 minutes. Welcome to Manchester, Erik ten Hag. It was truly fitting that United wore yellow like they were Watford playing Manchester City. And there were no words. Either United supporters silent in their dread or opposing fans laughing their asses off. All the while, Peter Drury was describing the fall of Manchester United in the most biblical sense. Things calmed down after, and Brentford went on to win 4-0. The first time Brentford had beaten United since 1938. But the match captured everything that was wrong with this Manchester United squad. As mentioned before, the lack of organization. There's no team here, just every man for themselves, and with no unit comes all these catastrophic goals being conceded. Then you have the lack of energy and soul. No one seems to have the motivation and fight like you see in other top teams. When United conceded that very first goal, it looked like they just gave up right then and there. And this is a result of the fact that there is no leadership in this entire team. Harry Maguire wears the captain's armband, but I don't really consider him much of a leader. He honestly looks as lost as everyone else on that pitch. Also, Ten Hag can't be excused just because he was working with a mess of a team. Why was Christian Eriksen playing as a defensive midfielder? Why was David De Gea, not known for his distribution, distributing the ball? And why, after months of this idea that Ten Hag valued commitment, he started Cristiano Ronaldo against Brentford? You know, the guy who torqued for other clubs throughout the entire summer. So after 2 games, Manchester United are bottom of the table, and as you'd expect, the Glazers out brigade has come out in full force once again. And before I talk about this lockout, I want to briefly discuss the Glazer family. Back in 2005, the Glazer family completed a controversial takeover of Manchester United. Now, why was this controversial? Because the Glazers took loans out to buy the club. loans against the club's assets, meaning the Glazers weren't paying back the loans. The club was, with constantly increasing interest rates, and boy, those numbers have gone hefty as of recent. Manchester United before the takeover were known to have no debt since 1931, but as of 2022, the club has over €500 million in debt. Debt isn't necessarily detrimental to a club, as you've seen with Barcelona this summer, but it's a completely different story when it's not your owners paying off the debt, it's the club itself. That's the main gist, but Rabona TV goes into a lot more detail in his video. It's very easy to understand, so definitely check it out. But as a result of this takeover and years of the debt constantly growing every single season, the club is now struggling to buy players, to compete for players. Now you could make the argument that Manchester United brought in Cristiano Ronaldo last season, but let's not glance over the fact that he was going to join Manchester City up until Alex Ferguson called him. But to sum it up though, United are the epitome of a football club turned business. I have considered United more of a corporation than I have a football club in recent years, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen that way too. Their successes on the pitch have been severely underwhelming. However, in terms of commercial value, they've been thriving with over $1.6 billion. The same can be said about broadcasting and brand value, which totals over $2 billion. All in all, according to Forbes, Manchester United is valued at $4.6 billion. They're the third highest valued club in the world. Now back to the walkout. Firstly, the word walkout sounds kind of counterproductive. If you've bought the ticket, the Glazers have already won. But if by chance I'm wrong, and I probably am, and the fans actually just won't show up to the game and haven't bought a ticket, it's still not going to work. Matchday revenue makes up 1.6% of United's value. The Glazers will happily watch Tom Brady throw footballs knowing no one is going to Man United games. Manchester United are also one of the most popular clubs in the world. I can't stress this enough. They have a stranglehold on the entire Southeast Asian region, and that's just one region alone. The Glazers know this as well, and will continue to sip on their martinis and grab their annual dividend payments, which that in itself is another reason to have absolutely no hope for this club. Basically, in the stock exchange, you can of course trade and sell different shares, and you have a certain amount of control over said business depending on how many shares you have. Now with Manchester United, they actually have two different shares. One where you can publicly trade, and another that only is being held by the Glazers family. And you know, it so happens to have 10 times the voting rights and more of the money. But honestly, United fans, your club is f***ed. Like, I'm not even exaggerating, because the odds are so against you that you fans literally matter less than Cadbury chocolates. And the same thing can very much be said about the performances on the pitch. They don't really matter. Erik ten Hag has probably one of the hardest managerial jobs. He's got a mess of a team that'll take years to rebuild. And what doesn't help is United's ability to compete for players constantly diminishing by the years. If United really want to be successful again, everything has to change, and that starts with the owners. They either leave or change the entire culture. And unfortunately, I just do not see that with how big the disparity is between United as a football club and as a business. But what do you guys think about this whole situation? Will United actually rise from the grave basically, or will they continue to fall? Of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons that make this possible, including Janos Balash, Spirit WNT, Florian Lengo, Milioe009, Alex Rod, Alta, Amin Suarez, Arnulfo Martinez Jr., Celoto, Daniel Ortiz, Darkwolf476, Francisco Hernandez, Hashim, Jax206, Juan Leras, Kev FM, Mika Deichmeister, Nguyen Mintang, Parafocus, Rory Byrne, The Motor Drive, Tomicus, Triple GK, Vanilla Mexican 17, Victor, Ariel Floor, Chris Damasceno, Declan Malloy, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Jordan C, Mohammed Albok Hale, MX Wee, Patrick Barley, President Pulisic, Tom Little, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like, follow my Instagram if you want, follow my TikTok, trying to get to 15,000 there, and of course, you can follow my semi-active Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.